couple minutes late. So, thank you. Something a little bit different initially about this meeting. There's a few things different, but I'm going to really go right into it. We've turned this into an official public meeting because there's been an interest of having more than 3 council members here at once. There's an interest from council, and I appreciate that. So thank you for coming. So because of that, we have to officially call this a public meeting. That's why, well, we were already recording, but we have to make it official. So we did post this a few days ago, and now we have to do one official act of the meeting, and that is a call to order, and which I'm doing, and we are going to take a roll call, and then that'll be it. Then we'll go back to freestyle. Go ahead, Kylie. Pardon me? Our meeting begins at 9:31. I've been speaking for a minute.
Councilmember Brockham.
Here.
Councilmember Klein.
Here.
Councilmember Badazi.
Here.
Councilmember Hilton. Councilmember Marks. Councilmember Ramirez. Mayor Bozo.
Here. Okay, enough of that official business. So now we can kind of get back to more of the casual style of what we've been doing here. So I want to announce a couple things. First of all, I want to introduce some folks. First of all, thank you for Kylie for coming today and setting this up for us. She was here bright and early, well before I was, so thank you very much. And as you just hear, we have council members here. Councilmember Bracco's here, Councilmember Fugazzi here, Councilmember Klein's here on coffee duty. And did I miss anybody? Hope not. And I'm here. We do have some members from staff here that do have some direct knowledge of the topic today, which is LAFCO. And that would be Community Development Director Sharon Goey and her trusted assistant here, Melissa Durkin, who has a lot of knowledge of LAFCO and LAFCO policies. Before we go any further, just want to make sure everybody's got some coffee. Tom's getting caught up with the coffee. There are some sweets over here today. Just a little shout out to Needed Bakery. If those of you don't know who Needed Bakery is, they are the agency that operates out of Rebecca Children's Services, and they do culinary arts and education for a lot of kids, underserved kids in this community. And they donated this today. So if you want to know more about them, their card is right over here. So also known, a lot of people know Chef Carlos. This is Chef Carlos's organization. So thanks to him for sending that over today. Let's see. As I said, the topic of today is LAFCO. Real popular topic to some people, not so popular to others. And as always, we're not limited to that, but I do want to make sure that we do touch on that topic. The way that came up is the last meeting. We were talking about a variety of different things and development, and then the also famous term builder's remedy came up. And so we were talking about the challenges of builder's remedy and development. And then at the very end of the meeting, someone raised their hand, and they are not here today. I wish they were. And the gentleman and his wife raised their hand, and he said, "What is LAFCO?" Right? So I took that opportunity because it was 1 minute past 10:30 to run out the back door because there was not enough time to go into LAFCO. And somebody said to me, "Hey, do this next month." So this is why we're doing this LAFCO topic today.
And we mentioned it in a couple of our planning meetings.
Yeah.
Also the budget meeting and whatnot, specifically in relation to sports bar area property.
Great point. That's a great point. So thanks for bringing that up. So as always, though, we're not limited to just the topic that I wrote about earlier in the month. And I do know that there are some young people here today, and they came here with the idea of asking the mayor a few things today, and I am fairly certain it has nothing to do with LAFCO. So I want to open the floor to they have some translation services as well, if needed. And then I think you guys are going to invite a couple kids up to come ask some questions. All right, man. Sometimes the kids are the toughest ones, so wish me luck. Come on up. Do you want the mic? Yeah. Take pressure off.
So good morning, everyone. I'm joined today by some residents who reside in the east side of Gilroy, specifically those within the boundaries of MAP F. And they're here to share some concerns that they experience on their day-to-day life.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. Appreciate it. All right, go get it. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
Did you have Steve, did you have a question for me? Did you ask him?
That's okay. No. I couldn't mute it. You couldn't pay me $5,000 when I was 9 years old. Come stand up here. The fact you made it up here is a big accomplishment.
My name is Natalia and I want to how does it feel?
Speaking.
How does it feel to be the mayor?
Okay, how does it feel to be the mayor? That's a great question. Thank you very much. I absolutely love being the mayor. I really do love it. I love engaging in the community. I love having a seat at the table. I love having seating at that table. And I love being able to, meet new people, learn new things about this community. And I love being in the position with a group of people that I am up here to making decisions that I believe are going to make Gilroy better.
So our children are here to discuss the concerns they have based on safety. They don't feel safe when they're walking to school. They feel like there should be more crosswalks and certain sidewalks on the east side of Gilroy, particularly the schools. They're just here to reinforce that and help.
I'll comment on that. So hopefully, this summer, like every summer, when school gets out, we've talked about it here before, that there's a lot of road work that goes on in Gilroy. And this summer, starting in just a couple weeks, a lot of new road work and road maintenance is going to start in Gilroy. And part of that is what they call a restriping. And part of that, I don't know exactly where, but part of that is I do believe that we are getting some new crosswalks in Gilroy. And I don't know exactly where, but for example, there was a gentleman in here who's been advocating, sorry, I'm pointing over there, but he was speaking here, and he's been advocating for a while for a crosswalk on 9th Street, not far from here near Glenview, and that's going to happen this summer. So the advocation matters.
Also great, the CDBG funds that were just assigned for sidewalk repair as well.
Yeah.
So she's asking for sidewalks on Elliott, by Elliott, 7th Street, so it's by the C Street.
Yeah. I think I understand.
Yeah.
So she's advocating again for crosswalks, specifically near the Elliott School on the east side. And I don't have exactly where the striping is going to happen this summer, but I do believe that there are more crosswalks coming. And if they're not, keep advocating. This is how you get things done. Don't forget about this. If it's important to you, keep advocating to all of us who sit up there.
Tell them about the app too.
Yeah. Okay, great observation. So we do have something in Gilroy as an application that's called Go Gilroy, Gilroy Connect.
Gilroy Connect or Go, or Seek
Click Fix, Gilroy Connect. Thank you. So anybody can go on that app, right? This is for everybody. Anybody can go on that app. I know we've talked about it before. And if you see a problem in Gilroy, you use your phone with the app. It's very simple. You see it, you click on it, and it gets into the process of being reviewed with timelines and a review process. So I encourage you to do that as well.
I did mention it to them. We were hoping if you guys could spare a few minutes at the end of the meeting to maybe help us work over the app.
Sure.
I'll do that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. One copy for Greg, please. All right. thank you so much. So let's just jump right into the topic of the day, and the topic of the day is LAFCO. And as I said before, I will be looking for a lot of help and a lot of comment when it comes to LAFCO. So I'm just gonna get right to it. So like they said last week to me, when the folks asked me, they raise their hand, what is LAFCO? Right, so I'm gonna give you a real, thank you very much. I'm gonna give you an official description of LAFCO. I'm gonna give you some descriptions about what they do, about who's part of LAFCO, and then we can open the floor for discussion. So what is LAFCO? LAFCO is defined by a local agency formation commission, which is a state mandated independent local agency established to oversee the boundaries of cities and special districts in Santa Clara County. To be clear, it's not just Santa Clara County, it's every single county in the state of California. Right? What does LAFCO do? They do a lot of things, but let me just give you the description briefly. LAFCO regulates the boundaries of cities and special districts. Boundary change proposals to LAFCO may include annexations, detachments from cities or districts, or incorporations into cities or districts, dissolution of districts, disincorporations of cities. So those are some of the things that they do at a very, very high level. I think as we speak, we'll get more about some specific things that they do, especially how they relate to Gilroy. Who is on LAFCO? I think sometimes there's this general sense that you don't really know about LAFCO, that there's this kind of this underlying feeling that it's like this secret commission that exists in Santa Clara County. It's not, right? LAFCO is made up of 7 people. It's made up of 2 county supervisors, right? One of whom is from our district. That's Supervisor Sylvia Arenas from our district. She's the chairperson of LAFCO. It's made up of 1 member of the San Jose City Council. I believe they automatically get 1 member because they're the largest city in Santa Clara County. It's made up of two members from independent special districts, which may exist throughout Santa Clara County. It's made up with 1 public member at large that the commission, the other 6 members, elect. And finally, it's made up of 1 member from all of the other cities other than San Jose. So that's the 14 other cities. And that person happens to be Mayor Mark Turner from Morgan Hill. So to give you an example, how did Mayor Mark Turner, from little old Morgan Hill down here in South County, get himself on this board that has such significance? Is that he simply ran for it, right? So there's a committee that our council and our city belongs to, an agency that's called the Cities Association, and that's where all mayors and council members, there's a selected person from each council, so it's either the mayor or a council member that we get together once a month. And that group of folks has the responsibility of electing 1 person, whether they're from Palo Alto, from Los Gatos, Saratoga, Milpitas, Gilroy, or Morgan Hill. And this year, Mayor Mark Turner was elected to that position. And even though if you look on the website, you might see that how long they have a seat on there. Sometimes they are longer than the term that they have at their own council. At the moment, let's say anybody lost their seat at their local council, they would immediately lose their seat on LAFCO, and then someone else would have to be elected to that seat. So that's a very, very high level. I looked at their work plan. What their work plan basically is to process applications initiated by cities and special districts throughout Santa Clara County, right? So I'll give you 2 examples of some that are close to Gilroy, just to give you an idea, right? So maybe 1.5 years or 2 years ago. So if you guys are familiar, you go to Christopher High School, you turn right on Day Road East, right? Day Road East connects Monterey Road and Santa Teresa Boulevard. And as you're traveling eastbound on the right-hand side, there's property, right? And there was was a proposal from developers to try to bring that property into the city of Gilroy to make it within the city limits. Right, and eventually at a high level, right, I know I'm missing details here, but at a high level, that proposal made it to the LAFCO committee, and the LAFCO committee found that two main reasons, I'm sure there were more, that the city of Gilroy's emergency services, fire and police were not adequate to handle that existing expansion of the city. And they also found that based on, I believe, the housing element, help me here at any time, please, on the housing element, is that we have room within the city of Gilroy to build more to meet some of the needs and the requirements that we already have. So why would we expand out if we already have space inside the city limits to do so? So that was declined, right? So a lot of people, there was a lot of conversation around town about why that's good and why that's bad, and everybody has a different opinion about it. But that just gives you a sense of, some of the decisions that the LAFCO body has made that relate to Gilroy. Another one, a little bit closer to home and a little bit more recent, maybe you've heard about the South Santa Clara County Fire District. That made a lot of conversation and news lately. But the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors decided that they wanted to annex the South Santa Clara Fire District, which was staffed by CAL FIRE personnel, and they wanted to bring back Santa Clara County Fire District employees and implement them into this district. So what is that? That is the firehouse at Tree Haven. That's the firehouse at Maston Road that you see. And that is a portion of the firehouse on Monterey Road, right when you get into Morgan Hill, the big CAL FIRE. They had a space there that was part of the coverage for this area. So that was since it's so recent, that was a very popular topic. Some people loved it, some people hated it. But as of right now, that is moving forward, and I believe July 1st, that will be official, that there will be a change from CAL FIRE personnel working in those firehouses to Santa Clara County Fire personnel working in those firehouses. So that kind of gives you a high level sense of what is LAFCO, what do they do, and what have they done lately. So, here's I looked at their online. What is their budget? Just give you an idea, right? So just to give people a sense, who are they, right? There's 7 electeds and there's 4 paid staff. They have a budget of about $800,000 a year. Most of it, all of it goes to personnel.
I believe Councilmember Hilton's on an alternate right now.
Yeah, thank you. So what Councilmember Fugazi said is every member, I believe, who's on the LAFCO commission they all have an alternate, right? So the alternate for the Mark Turner seat is Councilmember Zach Hilton. So the same thing. How did he get elected to that? He was elected by the same group of people, the representatives of Palo Alto, Milpitas, San Jose, Cupertino, Los Altos. He was elected as the alternate the same evening that Mayor Mark Turner was elected as the primary member. But everybody has an alternate. So the San Jose council member, I don't know their name, has an alternate from San Jose council. So based on that, I'll add a little bit more local flavor, right? So when I said things like, well, some people really love the actions of LAFCO and some people can't stand the actions of LAFCO, and I'm talking members of the public. I would hope and imagine that members of community development departments have some interesting opinions as well. But I'll give you, let me just give you a couple quick opinions that I know from people around town, okay? So here's one perspective. If you're new to Gilroy, maybe the past 5 or 6 years, and you live in a beautiful home on the west side in land that used to be agriculture in Gilroy and used to be in the county, and at one point LAFCO brought it in, allowed it to be annexed into Gilroy, and you love living down here in the small town, and you don't want anybody else to be able to come down here and live in that, you love LAFCO because you don't want them to annex any other country property. Possible, because I do hear that opinion from a lot of people. If you are a fourth generation ag family from Gilroy, and you do have some property that you've been working and has been in your family for 100 years, and you want the next generation of your family to keep farming, but you might want to cash in a few of your land assets to make that happen because farming is very difficult, you might have some challenges with LAFCO if you want to bring in a little bit of your land to be developed and annexed to the city of Gilroy. And I may have a representation about today sitting right down here at the table. I'm glad you're here, yes.
Can I add one more? So
Yes.
if you are a person who happens to be very pro housing density and against sprawl, okay, then you will also be very pro LAFCO, that you believe that there are properties already in Gilroy that either can be converted or empty property that's in Gilroy that can be converted to housing and whatnot. And so therefore you don't believe that sprawl is necessary. That's a whole nother camp of people.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
Greg, is the going assumption that if you do get incorporated into a city like Gilroy, the property value tends to go up for that property?
I
Is that
would say so, yeah.
And one other irony too, with all of this, has to do with the builder's remedy thing that you spoke of, because that same property off of Day Road, because Santa Clara County was in builder's remedy mode at the time, the same people who wanted Gilroy to expand up and to take into Gilroy that property now subsequently have filed builder's remedy to put the same kinds of properties in that particular place. And correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but and so the irony there is that those properties could still exist there, but now they exist outside the service area of Gilroy. And to further add irony to not having enough services, the other builder's remedy project that is been out there that's been in a lot of discussion, which is over off of Los Animas, would conceivably add even that many more pieces of people in need of services, but yet again, it's not really covered by LAFCO because it already is in the city. So there's all these little pieces of irony that happen around LAFCO.
Right, and help me with this next example, because you mentioned it earlier. So some people don't recognize this, but we have the sports park in Gilroy, right, on the south side of Gilroy. It's been there almost 20 years. Because it says the city of Gilroy, when you drive through the gate, you might automatically assume that that land is in city property. It's not. It's still in county property, right? So now this is the same exact place that, you know, this conversation's been going on about the Sharks Ice facility, but that would go over there. So I have a feeling that sometime soon that this conversation about annexation that part of town into Gilroy was something that might become popular with this council.
It's why I brought it up in the meetings, because obviously part of what you might have heard a lot of us talk about is economic development, gateways, and these kinds of things. And obviously that is one of our gateways. And to not have all the property right in that general area available to us means that if we have development that could happen there, it might be harder to happen because it's not within the city, number one. And number two, if development were to happen like Sharks Ice and maybe even another hotel near there or whatever, we get zero, okay, from those things. So we don't get the sales tax, we don't get the DOT, we don't get any of that. And so expanding those boundaries so we can absorb that would be a good idea. And on top of that, as you heard the mayor say, we have South County representatives now in LAFCO, which we would hope see things a little bit different than having a mayor from Campbell or whatever in there instead of Mark Turner and also Sylvia Reyes in there as well. So the timing might be a little bit better, but it's never easy. And obviously, you know, staff here could explain way better than I can what a nightmare some of this is. Because again, part of it that they take into consideration too when they're looking at how much sprawl and how much property you have is we have a huge chunk of property that exists that's not even buildable, right? Correct, that's out in the Hecker Pass area that gets counted in those ratios that they're like, well, if you want to build there, just give us some of that land and then your ratios will get better and now you can move out. So it's a morass. It really is.
And to be clear, just to reiterate what he said, is one of the dilemmas is, okay, so I think most of us in this room and on this dais we want to build the Sharks Ice, but there can be an incredible amount of economic opportunity that comes along with it. I mean, that's the whole point. And if that ground is not on city property, we don't receive the sales tax. So we're going to have to make sure that that ground's on city property. But then where does the argument begin and end? Because a lot of what they're tasked with is preserving ag land, you know, right next to, you know, I mean, right where the Sharks Ice is going now, which has already been approved, are peppers, right? I mean, there's peppers that are being planted now, I believe. So, and a little bit further down the road, there's ag land. So that's what we always have to figure out is how much ag land are we giving up for prosperity? All right, there must be questions, comments. Yes.
I understand, I appreciate all the explanation of LAFCO. I live on 7810 Oak Spring Circle, and we had a fire across from our house years ago, just before. And so I've experienced already how fast fires spread.
Yeah.
And so my concern is just fire protection in a timely manner, you know, since CAL FIRE is not going to be with us anymore and in our area there. And the main thing I'm questioning is the process, how this decision came about. When I found out after the fact, after January, they already had decided. And then even our representative, Zach, he didn't reach out to me or other people that I know of before the decision was made. Yet after the decision made, he was like, you know, oh, you know, I want to explain this to what we've decided. I mean, just the process, it just doesn't make sense to me. You know, they said there was a public hearing, April 2nd, this and that. Let's see, notice of protest proceedings. We were scrambling, just trying to get people to fill out the form. I know Elaine and I and other people here, we were trying to get our neighbors to fill out the form. They didn't know much about it. They hesitated. And when we showed up to the meeting there on May 7th, I didn't see Zach Wilton or Sylvia there sitting there at the table while we were there asking questions as to how did you come about, you know, with this. I mean, it's just the whole process just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, you're not, I don't think that you're the only one who feels that way, especially when, you know, you live in an area in a fire area. You're not the only one who feels that way.
And then we would email her or call her.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Middle of April, beginning of April, nothing.
She's your representative, right?
I know.
Yeah, she's not. I live in the city of Gilroy. She's your representative.
I know.
So,
and then Zach Hilton,
yeah.
and then on the
but
January.
remember what we're saying, Zach Hilton is an alternate. Your representative is Mark Turner.
But he didn't speak up.
Yeah.
He did not speak up. And then Mark Turner, he was the only one who voted against it. And he had his staff from Morgan Hill, the city, you know, orient him and speaking up about how, you know, to do more, checking into the process and the you know, how it's gonna be working out. And he's the only one who voted no.
Okay, so looking ahead, go ahead.
Most of the votes, if you follow LAFCO, is one, either for or against it, and the rest the other way. If you look at their board, almost all of them live in San Jose. You know, Sylvia represents the county and the other one represents the county, but they live in the city limits of San Jose. So we're totally outnumbered.
Exactly.
And they have a control issue. They like to control everything. And it's not just here. These LAFCOs are throughout the state and every county has one. It was ordered by the state. And the recent decision they gave us just shows how screwed it up it is. That area we're talking about is across from Del Bono School. It's in the city, but the city surrounds it, but they won't let us bring it in. And we're the ones that are gonna have to supply fire, police and everything to it, probably water and sewer, because they don't have water and sewer. And so it's a mess. And, you know, I'm one that I think they ought to just get rid of LAFCO, but a lot of people like it. And this is the way, I mean, the sports park, that doesn't even make sense. Their decision there makes no sense whatsoever. You know, it's not ever gonna be housing. The city owns all the property. We paid into a bank for ag mitigation. We bought property out at Van Dyke's farm to cover that. And they still won't let us bring it into the cities. And they do stuff, like you're saying, they're secretive. Their stuff just pops up.
And then I'm concerned, and a lot of us are concerned too, is that the cost, it doesn't make sense. I know our, you know, I look at, you know, how our city, how we're gonna be responsible for certain things, but just wondering for us to live out there, you know, is there gonna be added tax? I mean, their numbers just don't add up, it seems like. It's just scary.
You're asking me about a jurisdiction that is not in the city of Gilroy. This is not city of Gilroy jurisdiction, even though it does cross over into
Right.
unincorporated Santa Clara County.
Mhm.
Right, as the mayor of Gilroy and the city council members of Gilroy, you know, our jurisdiction is the city limits of
Right.
Gilroy. And, you know, we wanna be cautious about some of the services that overlap with Gilroy.
They do over that.
It will affect us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's out of our control though.
Yeah, it's out of our control.
That-
Yeah, that's the
Thank
tough
you.
part.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. I'll jump to the back.
So sort of a related question, but so if LAFCO recommends, is it a recommendation for you going forward, whether it's to annex property, and is that something then that the city council votes on? And then how does this all, like, I've been just learning about the builder's remedy thing, which really seems like a developer scam,
Yeah.
the way they started using it, based on need for additional housing. But my concern with the builder's remedy as it relates to LAFCO, and its parts of unincorporated Gilroy, are they also able to circumvent some of the SEPA processes, you know, as it relates to evacuation routes for people in high wildfire prone areas? And I think even the Attorney General, you know, California's Attorney General noted that cities, when they're doing these developments or planning ahead, have to get guidance to say they have to take that into consideration. So I know I threw a lot of stuff out there, but I'm really just, you know, whether it's the county board of supervisors and the planning commission, or the planning commission and the board of supervisors voting on development. But again, does builders remedy, are they able to circumvent some of the SEPA requirements?
So I'll take, I think I got that your question and comment is a reflection of LAFCO, right? So first of all, but I do want to see if I can hone in on something I might get some help from the community development. And one of the reasons why I wrote my letter earlier in the month, and I wanted to speculate a little bit. I left the question open. Is after 55 or 60 years of LAFCO, right? Because they've been there since 1966, 59 years. The past 4 or 5 or 6 years, the state of California has changed its direction, its laws when it comes to housing. And that was the question that I left open in my paper, is that for years, it appeared that by their actions, LAFCO, by extension, was doing a lot of the work of state of California, and that was controlling growth and limiting growth. Except now, the laws of state of California are saying build, build, build. Right, and that's the dilemma about everything you just said. Build, 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 where? Wait, what about CEQA? Wait, what about evacuation zones, right? So let me go to the community development staff and see if you have any comments based on what he said.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm Melissa Durkin in the planning division. CEQA will still apply whether the project is in the city or the county, but there are some movements afoot from the state legislature to modify CEQA requirements for residential projects. But whatever we can apply, we will apply. The issue with developing in the city versus developing in the county is that when you develop in the city is set up for urban development, so we can provide sewer and water services and parks and schools and all that. When you develop in the county's not set up for urban development. So what we're seeing with these projects that are in the county is that they are going to have their own package sewer treatment plants and wells. So there are concerns, from our staff as to, whether the, residents who live out there will be able to manage the sewer treatment plants, because that's quite an undertaking. And, whether there's adequate water capacity to serve those projects. And that's all something that they these developers will have to explore as part of the development process. And we are commenting on the projects with the county, and we are requesting that these projects go through the urban service area amendment process, which is the LAFCO process, and annex into city limits prior to development, but we'll see where that goes. We don't know what's going to come out of that yet.
One other thing too that, while I'm changing the microphone, is you guys might not even be aware of some of the other ones that have been filed under the county. So there's one out off Watsonville Road that has been filed. That's a giant one that's out there. There's another one that is northwest of Fitzgerald and Santa Teresa. That's a giant one. It's a piece of a big old family property that goes clear over the mountain, around and back over to where Mantelli is. In fact, on that master plan, with the air quotes, they actually have a sewage treatment plan in those plans that exists out off of Hecker Pass Road at Rochelle, more or less out there. They have a whole sewer treatment plant in that location. So it is some pretty wild stuff when you go and look at it, and the conflict, as the mayor was saying, between the goals and requirements of LAFCO and the goals of HCD and building property are so incongruent that you don't know who is going to want to win out. And as she just said too, like, well, we would like LAFCO to like limit what they're doing, but we don't like LAFCO over here. And so it's really, really a convoluted thing all the way around.
Yeah, and since the county did not get their housing element certified until the spring, they had a pretty long period of time where donors in the application could go into the county. And so, between us and San Martin and Morgan Hill, this area, there's been quite a number of those kind of applications. Yeah, and so when developers, for these county donors remedy applications come to these cities, whether it's us or Morgan Hill or some other ones in the northern part of San County, asking for utility services, we have to tell them, unless you're brought into this, that city's urban service area, we cannot legally provide utility services to you. And in order for them to be brought into the urban service area, they have to go through the LAFCO process. And none of them has, our understanding, some of them has done that.
Yes, sir.
My name is Doug Deerhead, I'm a Morgan Hill resident, so I don't have any position on whether Gilroy has been fairly or unfairly treated by LAFCO. But something that is worth mentioning, I think, is that the requirement for a person who's serving as a commissioner is to be independent and not represent a jurisdiction or a special interest, but instead represents the interest of the county as a whole. So when people talk about our representative, yes, we have people from South County now who have a good understanding of our situation, but they are not supposed to then automatically vote in favor of our jurisdictions against the charter of LAFCO, which is to develop space and permit small and services. So that's sort of a legalistic comment of like.
That's a great point. Thank you, great point. Thank you.
I just want to add that, like Sylvia ran, even though she's our representative, but I would think at least staff would answer the phone or answer emails. You know what I mean? I mean, I as a resident, as a voter and so forth, I just feel like she could have done a better job figuring out how to communicate in South Carolina.
Yeah.
I have a question on this. You said the budget was $800,000 and they had 4 full-time staff members. Other members, is there an honorarium for attending the meetings? What is the financial incentive to be involved?
There is no financial incentive for elected The commissioners, yeah. There's, yeah, the staff pay, I'm sure there's legal counsel, some professional services, some printing, some office costs, that's where the costs go. But electeds, that's a great question. I believe it's a variety of
It's
different taxes.
allocated across various jurisdictions.
But how are those funds generated?
They're levied on the jurisdiction.
Yeah, I believe it's a variety of different tax funding that funds them. I'm sorry.
Tax.
Great question.
If you look on your property tax bill, it's on there.
Where it's allocated.
Yes, sir.
Are there any, or does anybody know if there's constraints on LAFCO decision-making with respect to, like, they must respect the master plan, the approved master plans of the localities for making decisions or anything like that, where there's like confines to the decisions that they can make, or is it just can be independent of any of the local planning that's approved by
They're independent of any regulations imposed by the city or jurisdiction, because that's not their interest. Their interest really is in preserving agricultural land and in preventing the premature extension of infrastructure. So they don't take into consideration what the city's growth plans and development plans are for a particular area.
What else about laughter? Can't be this easy. Well, it's difficult. Or like, I heard you say the word convoluted over there a few minutes ago. Yeah, it's government at its best or
By
worst.
design, it's probably hard for the average resident to ever understand how all of this intersects and works.
Yeah. Okay, I'll switch the topic. Thank you. So, and you guys can help, all the council members can help me. Last Monday night here, we approved our budget. We've been working on that for almost 5 months. So we went through a process, what we call a strategic plan session and budgeting. And that's a process where, over 4 or 5 months, we get together after speaking with members of the community and come up with ideas, and then about how we see Gilroy going forward in the next 2, 4, or 5 years, 6 years, 10 years. And then we establish a budget that lasts for 2 years. And so after 4 or 5 months and after a 5-hour meeting on Monday, that was our latest, longest meeting so far since I've been mayor. We left here at 11:01. That we did pass the budget that I believe I'm very excited about, and I'd like to give you some highlights of it. Number one is one of the things that I believe this council was unified on, is the idea of economic development. Gilroy, the city of Gilroy has never been as active as I believe it is, as it's going to become in working with economic development in this community. And the reason why is because we established a position in a department called economic development at the city of Gilroy, and that will be equal to police chief, fire chief, community development director, finance director, and the economic development director. And I'm really looking forward. I'm optimistic about Gilroy. I believe Gilroy is full of potential, and we have assets and opportunity to make some differences down here in Gilroy. Second thing that's part of that is that I believe most of this council believes is that there's a lot of components of economic development, and that is not just an economic development director running around and drumming up business, but that is, the gateways to our cities, the appearance and the aesthetics of our cities, of our city, and that's part of what this council is making important, right? We don't just think by throwing one thing up against the wall and everything's going to change, but the appearance of our city, the law and order of our city, and I don't mean about high-level crimes. I just mean about small ordinance things, about aesthetics, about cleanliness, about everything about our city. I believe is connected to economic development. Thirdly, so sorry. We had economic development. We've had code enforcement. There's a conversation about recreation. I know that there was a pretty emotional conversation about recreation in Joy for the past 2 weeks. I'm excited about the future conversation of recreation. And I know some people who are just catching that on the outside a little bit, they might be thinking, wait a minute, you're cutting recreation? No, we're not, right? What we're about to do later this summer when we come back from a little recess is have an in-depth community-wide conversation about recreation while we have no other budget conversation going on, right? The budget book is like this thick. And now we're gonna just be talking about recreation. And that hasn't happened in Gilroy in years and years and years. And I'm looking forward to it. I think something good's gonna come out of it.
Including the senior center, as to what's going on with our seniors.
Yeah, I mean, everything, recreation, everything, right? Instead of doing it on a quick line item, right? We are gonna have a great conversation about recreation. So sometimes it takes council members to ask very hard questions that the community is uncomfortable with, but it's gonna come out, this is gonna come out good, right? This is, okay, it was him. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I mean, Terrence takes a lot of heat for the questions he asks, but this is gonna come out good, man. I thank you. I appreciate it. It's gonna come out good. Yes.
For 20-some years, the city of Gilroy, I think in partnership with the chamber, paid for Economic Development Corporation.
Yeah.
How is hiring somebody on staff going to make any difference?
Yeah, I just think it's a different council, number one. Number two, it's in-house. So this council gets to oversee it with the city administrator on a day-to-day basis. We set the goals, we set the expectations. We understand better, I think, especially this council, we understand better the assets that this community has, the potential that this community has than an outside organization. And I know we had a good run with the Economic Development Corporation. Tom mentioned 20 years. Yeah, 20 years. We had a good run of about 7, 6. Okay, debatable. But so the 20 years, I would not call 20 years a success the way it was.
Let me add something to that too. I think there is a need for a culture change, so to speak, in terms of how, and you can see this in different cities, okay? And the city of Gilroy has done a lot of things really good operationally, but when you have an overall culture change within a city organization, and you can see it again in other cities, where you have a department in there and that department is actually infusing that into other departments within the city to be more aware of this is where our goals are. We need to develop more revenue sources. We need to shorten the time it takes to do a permit for this, or we need to do that, and be able to work collectively as opposed to an outside group who then has to have 1 or 2 people who are trying to champion it and get that through the council and in. All of us on council right now that are here, and again, if you watch the strategic planning and everything else, are very well focused on this. And the reasons are real. It's not just because, it's because if you read the tea leaves of revenues and everything in the city, we're not in trouble right now, but we can find ourselves in 3 to 4 to 5 years if we don't figure out how to morph the overall economic structure of where money comes from in the city. And I think having it internally allows it to have that emphasis and requirement. And I know at least while I'm in office, that the scrutiny on that department to stay active and to see real results in what happens with businesses and revenue and changes in other departments is going to be real, at least for me. So I can tell you that.
Tom?
Well, I can talk to about the previous, and I know Councilmember Bracco has that experience, but in 19, I believe the city took away the funding to the Economic Development Corporation, correct?
They were having some issues.
Having issues.
We pulled their funding.
Right, the funding was pulled. Before that, they had a director, Bill Lentz, that did a great work for a short period of time that really you saw Lowe's, you saw all those things out there that you see, Costco, and that's the positive of that. But it came to an end in 19, and I think then with COVID and all that, we're actually restarting the conversation. That's the important aspect that the city has to understand. By, in a sense, taking control of it, because the Economic Development Corporation has gone away. And so this is our time to step in and really take the ball and run with it and really engage to make sure that that happens. We're at a crossroad and we need revenue. We tried, Measure C was an attempt to fund police and fire. So we have to find other ways then of having that happen, but also other services that we can provide. And this is the way to do it. And I think it's a great opportunity. And I think it's going to happen and be very successful at it. I'm optimistic for that.
And one of the things I did say in the meeting too, and I believe this wholeheartedly, and it kind of drives me in a way, is I want to work so that as a city, we can provide more services from a position of abundance, not from one where we're rationing a diminishing supply. And Morgan Hill right now is having budget issues themselves for very similar reasons that we may have coming down the pike. And they're going to be making some hard decisions very soon in their own budget issues. And I would much rather us get ahead of things and build more abundance and top line revenue than figuring out who gets a smaller piece of the pie.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask, we have a piece of, my family's been here since 1918. We got a piece of property the outlets there. We got 15 acres that, when they put Home Depot in, we ended up, I applied to get it in the city. And I went through all the steps. I went to see Mike Honda. He said, I don't see a problem. And when it come up to vote, the first time he excused himself when it came to vote. The second time, he voted against it. You know, it kind of just really upset me. Should have told me up front, hey, if you're premature, you know, let it go. But no, I spent all this money to do all the steps to get it applied for it, and then they voted against it. So now, what I understand now, you know, I mean, I got city on, it's right next to Home Depot, and it's city on 3 sides, right? And what I understand is that if you're bounded on 3 sides, you should be able to get taken in by the city. But now what I understand is that the only way we can get it in, we gotta put it to the vote of the people. Because the proposition, I mean, probably which the city passed this to get it in, it's gotta go to the vote of the people. Now,
H.
I mean, how do we go about this? I mean, you know, and the whole thing about it, they told me, oh, he said, why don't you just let it go fallow? And I said, okay, you know, farm lead under it. You think with the taxes, who pays the taxes? I pay, right? So I'm supposed to let it go fallow, I'm supposed to just knock the weeds down and let it go. That's not right. I mean,
So Louis, let me give some perspective to this for folks who maybe not know what you're talking about, because I think people appreciate it when they know it's us. It's you, it's us. Right? So the piece of property that Louis is talking about, if you go out past Home Depot, right? So you have the commercial areas on the left-hand side, there's a furniture store, there's Gold's Gym. On the right-hand side, there's Home Depot. If you keep going, it opens up and there's empty land on each side, right? The land on the left is in the city of Gilroy and it's zoned commercial, I believe, right against the highway, right? Home Depot is clearly in the city. Louis' land, 15 acres, is right there. It's not in the city. At the very corner, there's storage units. You see that?
Yeah.
That's in the city. You turn left, you go to the hospital, you're in the city.
You're in the city.
That's the convoluted part that everybody struggles with sometimes. And then what Louis is saying is,
You go right, you got Brock's.
if you go turn right, you
There.
go to
Yeah.
Brock's house. Now everyone knows where he lives. Go ahead. Tom did it on me.
It's his district. It's his district.
Just dodge me.
Right? And to add insult to
Everyone knows.
injury, and this is the part that's really frustrating. He's not kidding when some politician said, let your land go fallow.
Yeah.
Because that's part of the criteria of bringing ag land out of ag district and into the annexation is that it's not used. And it's just not in his DNA to have ground unused. It's very difficult.
Or his wallet.
Right?
Yeah, we got enough fallow land in the county already with absentee landowners. They buy a piece of property and let it go and then, hey, you know, then I got a problem because when the wind blows all that steel on my property. You know, they,
I love it.
and then the second thing they want to say, we gotta keep ag here. Come on, be realistic, you know, ag in Santa Clara Valley is done.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're not right about that, but compared to your day,
Well,
of course
you know
it's
what?
different. Yeah.
There's only about 3 of us that consider any size at all.
Yeah.
Okay, but for the rest, I mean, sure, south of Gilroy and leave the area, and we got 50 acres that's in the ag preserve behind the outlands, which
Yeah.
I don't know how long that's gonna be ag preserve.
It's a difficult situation, but I do believe,
You know
I don't know who said it earlier, if it was Councilmember Fugazi, like, things change, right? And right now, things have changed, right? When it comes to the state, that was the whole point that I wrote this article is, the state and LAFCO, in my view, now this is a personal opinion, appear to be at an intersection. Now, I know the folks on LAFCO would go, hey, wait a minute, Greg, don't say that. But it appears to be at an intersection, maybe not today, maybe not last week, but I believe that, and you guys working with them, especially from the state level, right, they're the ones who work closely with the state level and the LAFCO, they appear to be at an intersection, and there may be some new opportunities. I know after all these years, you might think, who cares? But there may be some new opportunities.
You know, and actually, the new developments they're proposed, that they're gonna build these houses on it, which is right next to our properties. They're in Lucky Orchard Ranch. And there's other ones that on Middle Avenue, on San Martin and Logos, on Logos Avenue there. And there's the old pumpkin patch, Rocky Garcia's under that same program. Now, where's all this money gonna come to fix the roads, to maintain the schools and all of this is another question.
Exactly.
Now,
That's
they're
the,
just gonna let this happen?
yeah, I'm gonna lean on Melissa again, here I go, sorry. What, like, here's sort of a question for Melissa, I think, out of what Louis said, is like, all these developments come along, and sometimes the cities get stuck with the tab of services and roads and all that, so what's the perspective of a community development department?
In terms of being stuck with the tab.
Well, yeah, like, right, does it happen?
Yes. Yes, it does happen, and, then the city is in a position where, city council has to find the money to, serve those sites, in terms of maintaining the, sewer system, water system, roadway network, providing, recreation services, all of that. So, one thing I will say though, is even with, property that is in city limits, that we do collect, property tax for, the state does get most of the property tax. I think the city gets, out of the taxes collected, I think maybe 9%, something like that. Actually goes to the city, and, then a similar amount goes to the county, and then the rest goes to the state. So that's why, the mayor is talking about the budget constraints and the need for economic development, because, this is an ongoing issue for cities.
I have a question about LAFCO.
Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
So I snuck a look at one of the maps you had over there, and it shows some of the farmland. Seems like everything close to development is marked as significant or something like that. How is that determined, and does that mean it's harder for somebody who owns that land to have annexation approved?
Here's the part where I'm never afraid to say something, I don't know. So what she was looking at, I downloaded the LAFCO work plan. So you were looking at the LAFCO work plan?
It's a real feat to get something brought in. You gotta have consultants
I
and
know.
attorneys and planners, right, Melissa? You can't just walk in there with an application.
Right, but is there some farmland? It looked like there, I guess I need to get on the website myself and read more, but it looked like there was some farmland and it was all right next to our, 101, our urban areas.
There's different criteria, as I said, to bring, to even ask, to bring farmland into annexation or into development. And a lot of it are pretty significant and interesting criteria, and some of them are silly ones about let your land go fallow and then we'll consider it. They're crazy.
Well, what's determines that?
Yeah.
How many years is it fallow?
And I think and then also it has something to do with how much, when's the last time that ag land was watered? Right? It's, yeah, they're really odd. Yes, sir.
I have two quick questions on this EDO stuff. So we're really gonna focus on what's practical, not blue sky. Okay, and then you talked about this focus on recreation.
Yeah.
So the net out of that is that this would be a great thing to do. Is there like slush fund money or something to pick up on things you miss in the budget, or what? How would you do that?
No, economic development, right? Reappropriating funds from somewhere else right? There's ways, and I'll get your help too. No, but let me just say it really quick. The first step is to have an awareness, and I think there hasn't been a real interest, a big awareness of recreation about the possibilities for recreation. So that's the first step. That's the what, and then the how, right? I'll let Terrence help with that. Then the how, right?
So my opinion is he's absolutely right. We need to start moving the train on building that top line revenue, right? And you're talking more about, okay, now you guys are looking at short term, what are you gonna do for recreation? Because you're gonna be looking at it in a few months from now. Right now, and what hasn't changed in the budget, which again, people really should just get into some of the data, is that the general fund is still pushing $1.5 million in a balanced budget into the recreation account, GL account, which is GL account 290. And those funds are still getting pushed into the savings account, so to speak, for recreation. Meanwhile, we can look to see how we want to expand those services, and we have a budget that balances with that extra amount of money that we have, okay? The last 3 years, I wanna say, or maybe more, that account has been basically surplus that same amount every one of those years. So about $1.6 million has gone into that fund, up to I think 2.1 million now in the actual recreation fund. And how we spend that particular money, part of it got spent on pickleball courts, that was decided, and how it will get spent going forward is part of this, I think, decision-making process that the mayor is talking about. Both the money that's already there, and then that ongoing money that still balances the budget from the 1.5 million. Now, exceeding that amount of that 1.5 million would again have to take even more support to come to the council, in my opinion, to support trying to find where else we would get money to increase that budget, because the revenue that it gets is about $700,000-800,000 from all the services that are there. And as you might have heard in the meeting, people also want the costs to come down. So you have to find where all this money can come from. And I can tell you myself, I'm very much, and other council members know this and the mayor knows, I'm very much in the weeds in a lot of this stuff to look to see where we are spending money and where we might be able to move money from one place to the other that makes more sense in the time that we happen to be. But we are not so flush with cash that we could double our recreation. That's just not going to be something we're going to be able to do. But where that 400,000 maybe goes, that I think is where we would be looking at.
Trying to find prioritizing, basically.
At one point, we had a very robust recreation department in 2008, in the downturn. Whenever there's a downturn, recreation's the first thing on the chopping block. Just, you know, because we have to provide our core services. And it's been cut and cut and cut. And now we're trying to put some back.
Answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Just back to one more sort of leftover this thing. Since Measure H was mentioned, I guess I'm a county resident and didn't vote on it, but so there's actual boundary that was, but were there unincorporated lands within that boundary, or how is it that, like, it's his property, the city would be able to annex it? And then also, just to make a comment, but it's kind of interesting, I remember at the time when that was, Measure H was being proposed, Mark Turner was either a consultant here, or he had
Chamber of Commerce. Chamber of Commerce.
I'm sorry?
President of Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, okay. And he was completely voting against it, or advocating turning that down. So it's kind of interesting that he's actually represented on that. So he obviously was pro-native rooms. I mean, he was pro.
He was in a different organization that had different kinds of goals than LAFCO's goals. I mean, they're pretty much like it.
For those who don't know, Measure H established an urban growth boundary for the city. And there's land that is outside the city limits, but within Gilroy's planning area, it's called the general plan area. Some of that land is designated for urban development and could be, if we were successful going to LAFCO, could be annexed into city limits and developed. And then there's land that is outside of the urban growth boundary that is designated at this time for open space and is not currently proposed for development. So, there is land, like, Mr. Benino's that, it's within our general plan area, but it has been designated for open space, so currently there's no development plan for that land. And there is a process in Measure H for how that can change. There are different mechanisms for that to happen. And so, they have to go through one of those processes to change that.
Melissa, if somebody wanted to move the boundary, it takes a vote of the people, correct?
It takes a vote of the people,
Okay.
yeah. And I know there's a sunset date for Measure H, and I unfortunately, I don't remember, I think it might be, close to
2043.
Yeah, I think it's the same as with the general plan. And so, there's the opportunity, I think, either, for, a vote to occur to extend that, or, for it to just expire, and we'll see what happens.
Is there a way to look up what those boundaries look like?
Yeah, it's on our general plan, map, and, in fact, if you wanna contact, I mean, I can give you my contact information after the meeting, you can send me an email and I'll.
And to be transparent, I'm concerned it was brought up, the development proposal, which was completely sneaky in my view, because back in 2008, the Gilroy Dispatch brought it, or with several articles, and so it ordered virtual, but it's the Watsonville Road development where they're proposing close to 300 homes. And I'm a member of Happy Acre Mutual Water Company. Small water company serves 80 households in that immediate area. We believe our well would be threatened, and so that's what we're kind of curious. With Gilroy, is it even possible Gilroy could annex that and then provide city sewage, city water? I don't think that's going to happen. But the scary thing is, and it would still impact Gilroy, is if they somehow could drill a few wells, since it's right immediately adjacent to Little Uvis, is that I can imagine your aquifers within the city are probably fortified by runoff, and certainly the Santa Clara County waters, I'm sure taxing you guys. That could potentially be a threat for you folks in years down the road potentially. But I'm just so that's where I'm curious about those boundaries, because that many homes in what was considered the Emerald Valley or of Gilroy is completely contrary to what's then back to the Gilroy Dispatch article. Swimson Builders wanted to do a quarry project out there back in like 2008, and then overwhelmingly people started saying, look, how we want to piss off our neighbors, so we're going to shelve the project. And now this is just repackaged. 300 homes, want to have a nice lake within that development. So for folks that now are directed on ways to come down Watsonville Road on a busy Friday afternoon, you can just imagine coming in and coming out. It's just going to completely change the atmosphere.
Well, Gilroy's general plan area does not go past the golf course in that part of town. There is another planning area called the Sphere of Influence that does go past the golf course, but at least for the foreseeable future, Gilroy's not planning to bring that property into our general plan area. It's something that the city council could always evaluate when the next general plan comes out, which would be in just before 2040. But I'm not aware of any plans to look at extending the general plan in that area. So any development that would occur now would be through the county, through that Builders Remedy project, and that's got its own issues. If the city were to expand its general plan in that area, we would be providing urban services to any development, and that's something that we would have to examine whether we could provide them. So that's actually kind of a safeguard for any development that would occur in city limits, because we are required to go through the processes of making sure that we can provide urban services. The Builders Remedy project will also have to go through that analysis, but I can't speak to what kind, whether they have the same kind of thresholds that the city has. They certainly have to make sure that they have adequate water capacity and that their sewer system is designed to serve that project. But I don't know how rigorous those approvals are, I just can't speak to that.
And I guess that goes back to another question, or even as a city council for a city, if LAFCO recommends or moves forward, are you all able to vote on that, or are you bound by their decision?
This property that the project you're speaking of, it's not in city limits, it's in the unincorporated Santa Clara County.
Well, I guess so there's, is there a way they can make a proposal for the city of Gilroy to annex that property?
It's not in our general plan area. We couldn't go through a urban service area expansion to serve that property no matter what.
Until 2040.
Yeah,
Leading up to
potentially 2040. But I mean, for this builder's remedy project, if
Right.
it's plan to go forward now.
In that life, it wouldn't happen.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I know we're past 10:30. I want to leave with a couple comments, especially when it comes to, related to your project that you're talking about out there. And I think you get the sense now, that's pretty far out there when it comes to the city of Gilroy. And this is where advocacy matters, right? And this is the point of what I was saying is that, yeah, at the state level, you have these new laws that are allowing these builders remedies development or these developers to come in and say, I'm gonna put a housing development in the middle of nowhere. And we're gonna figure out how to do it, right? But it matters. If you advocate, like the Happy Acres folks, that's all El Matador stuff, right? Yeah, so the Happy Acres folks, get together. You know, you guys have an association out there, get together and go to these meetings and advocate to the LAFCO members, talk about traffic, talk about water. Because it's hard for them to deny water. And water is a real situation out there, right? Everybody thinks because it's near the river that there's water everywhere out there. It's actually the opposite in Gilroy. All the water, most of the water's on this side, easy to get to. And over there, I know people who have homes over there that have to go 800 feet for water, right? And you would think, how's that possible? The river's right there, I see it. That's not how you get water, you get it out of the ground. And those are the things that members, I think reasonable people that are the reasonable people on LAFCO, they will hear that. So you gotta advocate though, because they're probably not gonna come from here, unfortunately. But one thing, I'll add one more. One thing that these developers do come to the city of Gilroy for, help me here if I go too far, is what they want to know is about sewage treatment. And that's when they want to be our friend, sewage treatment, right? Because it all passes through Gilroy.
Wouldn't they have to get easement rights?
All kinds of things have to happen, and one of them is the approval from this community to tap in. There's different ways to do that. So that project's down the road.
If you look at the Lucky Hair property and that builder's remedy, you'll see a strip of property that goes all the way over to where the freeway is, which ironically is where the trunk of the sewer line happens to be.
That property goes along Turlock, they come back over here on the back of my place.
Yeah, but that's just so they can have the easement to get to the sewer trunks, basically.
Well, I don't know if it's to the sewer line.
It's on the plan.
Now, this goes back.
Anyway,
They go to Port Law. Just, you know, and what are they gonna do with sewer? They're gonna have their own sewer plant. So at that time, I told the city extension, I said, why don't you hook up to the sewer? You know, so you solve all that problem. No, he said, we can't hook up to the sewer because it's not in the spirit of Morgan Hill and Gilroy. So we can't use the sewer. Well, at the time when they put that sewer line through, and it was my dad and with Louis Silva and Paul Masalica and one other party. They said, they sent us a letter that says, sign so we can go through your property. My dad never sent it back. So Sig and Goodrich and they all come see me. How come they didn't send it back? I said, what are we gonna get for this going through our property? He said, well, someday you'll be able to hook up to the sewer line. And so my dad said, you know what? You just write me a letter, I want a sewer hookup. So my dad got one, Louis got one, so 4 people got a sewer hookup. So when I built my house, I hooked up to the sewer.
But he's in the county.
I'm in the county, right?
Those are old deals.
You know what? And then they came back and said, oh, we gotta have that letter back. Water run under the bridge, don't come back. Here last year or 2 ago, I sold a piece of property. I had a letter from the city of Gilroy stating I had a sewer hookup. So I gave that letter to the fellow I sold the property to. So he come to the city of Gilroy and they said, you don't have a hookup. Well, they got a stamp letter with a stamp on it from Gilroy. So what does this mean?
Yeah.
Well.
40-year-olds of deal making.
40 years old, and he said,
As all the
"There's
property.
only 4 people that got it hooked up."
So just to be clear, now I'm gonna tell everyone where you live. Right, now that everyone knows Rockwood, just to be clear, right, LJB Farms, the barn, the market, the produce, this is the Boninos right here, right? They've been, this is his sister Elaine on his left, this is Louis. They've owned this property for 100 and some odd years, and these are some of the challenges that ag families have, and these are some of the old deals that got made, but don't get made anymore probably. Across the street from LJB Farms, there's a community there of about 18 homes, right?
Right.
It used to be out in the county, 18 homes, they're all on the sewer.
They're all on the sewer.
Because the line passed through the property, right? So I'll end it on that controversy. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I know we went 20 minutes over. Appreciate it very much. Elaine?
I just wanna say, the sewer line goes by one property.
Yeah. Oh, no.
This was about, 15 years ago now. It's raining on an October day and I come home from work. And I'm sitting there and go, what's that strange noise? And it's raining, I open the door and I go, oh my God, there's that much water running down the street in front of my house. And I heard a strange noise, so the water's going under my house.
It flooded.
A basement which it never fills up. I'm calling the ranch, saying, get up here, somebody. My mother's alive, she's 100 years old. Can't carry her out of the house because of the water. That water was from Morgan Hill Sewer blowing its lid off down the street.
So, and as I was saying earlier, way out where you guys live, that is not Gary District. Nor is San Martin Avenue, so I'll end it at that. That's really far north of Gilroy.
But I'm saying, the sewer coming from.
Yeah, it's real,
Morgan
yeah,
Hill
yeah.
Will impact
Yes, good point. Thank you.
the in-between property, contaminate water and everything else. So even Builder's Remedy on Glaucus and San Martin over by the post office, that's a narrow road. They're gonna have to put in water, there is a city coming up. Like Monterey Water owns it now. But they're gonna have to put in more wells. And then what are they gonna do with that sewer?
And these are all the things at the county level and at LAFCO that you guys definitely should get involved in, really. I'm not joking about it. Get involved and make your voice clear. Yeah.
One thing before the community, is anybody complaining about the cars parking here for gas in the apartments?
No, they haven't. But if you go to See Click Fix, Terrence will tell you how right now. And someone will get right on it.
Yeah, you gotta,
And they love it.
I know what you're talking about.
yeah, about 12 cars parked along that, yeah.
Not all
Yeah.
of these park rides are sort of diagonal in there, come around that corner. Luckily, nobody's got here, really.
But advocacy matters. Look, someone was here 2 months ago and they came and advocated for people parking in the wrong area up at the new apartment building up there. And we did the See Click Fix. You're right, but it's still city.
Yeah, coming in.
And we did the See Click Fix and there's no cars there anymore. It works.
It
It works.
Unless somebody tells the city they don't know there's a problem.
Yeah, it works. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for coming.